Leisure by W.H. Davies. What is this life, if full of care, we have no time to stand and stare? No time to stand beneath the boughs and stand as long as sheep or cows. No time to see when woods we pass, where squirrels hide their nuts in grass. No time to see, in broad daylight, streams full of stars like skies at night. No time to turn at beauty's glance and watch her feet, how they can dance. No time to wait till her mouth can enrich that smile her eyes began. A poor life this, if full of care, we have no time to stand and stare. As a fellow photowalker listening to this show, you'll know that usually, with the exception of interview-only specials, it's a show recorded on the path with your letters and thoughts as company. There are footsteps and birdsong, passing conversations occasionally, and of course the unexpected interruption from that barking machine called Barney. Over the next 2 weeks, we're in Scotland with the show. During the second week, we're very much out and about in the Highlands, although for this show, the first of 2 Scottish specials, we're stepping indoors. And that's why I started with that wonderful poem by W.H. Davies called Leisure. Today's episode, I think, will feel a little different. There are moments where you'll hear automatic and beautiful manual machines at work, paper being handled, water running, people talking carefully about a process that can't be hurried. There won't be dramatic reveals every few minutes. Instead, we're going to spend time with a craft that has survived precisely because it refuses to rush. The Highland Print Studio in Inverness, which is where we'll be at today, is not a loud place. It's a place of very measured movements, where you wait, where you look again if you feel like it. It asks something that modern life rarely does, which is patience. And in between our conversations, I'll occasionally pop by as my studio self to tell you about the remarkable history of photogravure, which is what we're doing. We'll meet some of the people who shaped it, discover why photographers and artists became absolutely captivated by it, and perhaps understand why, in an age where millions upon millions upon millions upon, we get the idea, Neil, of images appear and disappear every hour, some still choose a process that asks for hours, and in our case, days, of careful attention. You don't need to know anything about printmaking before we begin, or photogravure, or polymer photogravure. In fact, it may be better if you don't. Simply imagine yourself standing beside us in the studio, watching an image gradually make its way from a photograph into something rather beautiful you can hold in your hands. For this next little while, this isn't so much a lesson as an experience. To stop and stare. But before we start, I'd like to say thank you to someone who makes this show possible. You know, it's refreshing to find places online where creative people are simply sharing their work, ideas, and encouragement without everything feeling like it's a race for attention. That's part of what Art Helper is building, and they support this show, which helps keep these walks happening every week. Art Helper is a community for photographers, artists, and makers, with a live feed of artwork and discussion, artist profiles, creative networking, and a growing global directory celebrating human-made work. It's free to join at arthelper.com/sign-up. arthelper.com/sign-up. There's also a direct link waiting for you on today's show page. This week's show is, it's a part 1 of 2 parts, really. Part 1, which I'll tell you about in a moment, leads on to part 2 of our Scottish week in the Highlands on our Scottish retreat this year for 2026. We have an intimate team this year. There's myself and Lynn, And there's, as always, and there's Giles Penfound, my dear friend Giles, has travelled to the Highlands with me. And we've got Michael Assmann, and John Anderton. So there's an intimate team of us in Scotland this year, enjoying the delights that is this Scottish retreat. And part one, actually, is just about one process, the process of photogravure. Now, I'll not tell you about that because I want somebody who really knows what they're talking about in a moment to explain what photogravure is, why it's so important and precious to photography. But I've come to Bank Street, 20 Bank Street, which is the home of the Highland Print Studio, which is just across the road, and that's where today's show is going to take place. Well, across 2 days, because this is a 2-day process for us within our week in the Highlands. I've decided really to make one episode of this particular process of producing a print because, well, it's unique, it's special, it's like nothing else I've ever done when it comes to printing and photographic technique and technique of printing. And so I thought I'd make it one episode. Now, I will say that this episode may challenge you technically in places to understand, because when you're there watching it, doing it, getting your hands dirty in the process, as it were, then it's easier clearly to understand. But I'm hoping by the way we describe it, what we do and what happens across this next hour will help you understand the magic or feel a part of the process as we watch our images that we've made come to life. So, do you want to join me? Let's cross the road to the Highland Print Studio, right next to the River Ness. Hold on, left, right. John McNaught is studio manager here, and we're entrusting you over the next couple of days to hopefully come away with something in a photogravure sense that, well, number one, makes sense because it's certainly a process I was not aware of. I'd heard of it, but I don't know how it happens. I've been in a dark room, so I understand the process of being in a dark room. This is rather special for all sorts of reasons. I need you to do the fill in the gaps bit. Let's talk about the studio first and the history of this place.
Well, this is its 40th year, so we currently have an exhibition up at Inverness Museum and Art Gallery celebrating that. It shows the story of it. So it's similar to a network of studios within Scotland that are core-funded through Creative Scotland, essentially Scottish Government money. So we're an open access printmaking and digital imaging studio. So that means that we work with a whole variety of people. So once you know what you're doing, or if you do know what you're doing in advance, you can use the studio a bit like how you would use a gym. So you pay a membership and session fees when you're in. If you don't know what we're doing, we can train you either through access classes or one-to-one. We also, on top of that, have a community remit, or a remit through the funding. So we work with a lot of community groups. So that could be children, people with mental health problems, all sorts of any groups really within the community can come and if there's funding can get access to tuition or projects or whatever. And projects are another aspect of what we do. So if Alice can access a fund for something, then we'll maybe have like a large project which involves other things. So examples would be Throw Up 2018, which Throw Up is the start of a shinty game. And we worked with 4 shinty clubs and all the people involved in running the clubs and making shinty happen. And we had 4 artists at 4 clubs that produced a series of work. So it brought, I suppose like in that example, that brought the shinty community together with the art community.
I only saw my first shinty match last year.
Yeah, it's great.
I went to the final, so I started on a good note, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's a shinty's interesting because it is a very social, very community and cultural thing as well. So these are examples. I mean, we did in the past, we've done one called Sexy Pete, which highlighted the properties of blanket bogs in Scotland, the two largest in the world. And that was, again, artists working with scientists, communities, and so on to highlight, and through artwork and printmaking, properties of these things.
So the advantages in Scotland or rather this advantage, I think those that are creative in Scotland get that I don't get in England. And maybe it's because it's an unwieldy beast, England, that you've got this wonderful creative communities that are linked together.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it ultimately comes down to political choices, I suppose, and how it's run. So here, how long it'll carry on for, who knows? But these places, I always think of them as a kind of form of art socialism in a way. The funding means you get a relatively high or a high quality facility at low user rates and accessible. So that's why we have such a range of people using it. So the artists who use it could come locally just down the road. They could come from the islands. They could come from throughout Scotland, England, and international artists come and use the studio as well. So a lot of them maybe come and get a couple of days tuition and spend 1 or 2 weeks using the studio.
Now we've come here to do photogravure, or actually polymer photogravure, because there's a difference between the two.
I suppose in terms of, it's a fusion between printmaking technique, etching, and intaglio is the inking term, and photography, I suppose. So we've always had links with photography in the studio because we have a digital suite and we do a lot of large format, high quality gallery, exhibition, photographic printing for photographers. So it made sense that we explore the links more in the rest of the studio. Screen print, you can use photographic work through screen print, but the photogravure work allows for a much greater tonal range and these rich tonal ranges. So the difference is from traditional gravure, which uses copper plates and is closer to closer to the process of etching. We are now substituting that with polymer plates. So real purists would say it's not gravure because there's no actual etch. The plates develop in water. Right. But if we called them polymer intaglio, nobody would know what the hell we were talking about. So it's better to call them polymer photogravure plates. So the inking process, all of that is exactly the same. It's just this change in how you create the plates, which the plates are exposed, the image is exposed onto rather than
I think of the plates as my film.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. And I suppose in photographic terms, as far as I'm aware, it's the only process where you have something physical hitting the paper.
Right.
So the plate is embossed and pressed into the paper, whereas most other photographic processes are either a chemical reaction or a spray with inkjet now. Yeah. So you've got this physical thing that hits the paper.
This plate with these raised. Are they dots or they?
They're not raised. They're the opposite. They're indented, and so the ink is going into them rather than on the surface. That's the intaglio. Whereas relief ink, like letterpress or lino cut, for instance, is on the surface and not in the grooves. I mean, to be honest, when I first started looking at these plates, printmaking is quite tactile. A lot of the materials are very tactile. The idea of plastic coated plates didn't appeal too much, but I've really grown to get quite fond of them. And the kind of fusion as well of most people doing the photography side are coming from a digital source. So you've got this fusion of the digital source, the polymer technology, and then the very traditional 400-year-old inking method. So it's this nice mix of old and new, but to create a kind of timeless end result.
Well, timeless is a very good word to use because I've seen Lynn Fraser's work, and they're these beautiful. Well, they're sharp. We shouldn't be using the word sharp, but there's detail. But they're beautifully soft, and there's this rich feel to them, which I don't think I've seen from traditional printing.
With normal printing, you would have in the darkroom, I suppose your colour is coming essentially from the paper itself. So you've either got monochrome or colour. here the colour or the tone is in the ink itself. Now, if you're using pure black, these inks are oil-based, and that black is dense, really dense, velvet, rich black. So you've got this almost 3D look to the tonal range because you're starting with this really incredibly dense black and the emboss as well. And then, like you say, this kind of almost smoky, dreamy look to the tonal areas. So equally, you could change the ink colour, for instance, on the plate. And a lot of people like to go to, say, for instance, a sepia. They have to remember that the further you go from black, it's in digital terms like clipping your tones, because then you've got no absolute darks on the image anymore because you've got no black in the ink. So, for obviously, if you went to a yellow, you'd have a very anemic kind of looking print from it. But the further you go, so most people would be going to like a blue-black or a warm black rather than an overly sepia.
And are many artists using it to show their work? Is it something that you've noticed?
It's popular here, yeah. The class is popular. A lot of people continue to use it, yeah.
But not just the classes. I'm thinking about artists or photographers that show their work using this process.
I think it's probably growing. The polymer process probably has made it a little bit more accessible. I'm not sure if there's any studios in the UK that still do the traditional gravure. It's something we've looked at over the years, but we just haven't got round to it. And maybe an aspect to that is that the polymer plates are very good at it. So, but there is disadvantages in them. You can't work the plate so much. They're kind of effectively single hit exposed. But also, artists use it and combine it with things. So they might have like a screen print over the top of it and so on. So it allows, because I suppose it's a printmaking method, and that allows you're using printmaking papers. You're using, you're taking advantage of all the properties of printmaking, but with a photographic source. So.
Well, I hear some excited people downstairs ready to start the process. Yeah. I think we should go.
Yeah, great.
So then, notebooks at the ready, because today I have a feeling you're going to hear a few names you'll want to look up later, or perhaps spend a wee while, if John doesn't mind me borrowing the vernacular, getting to know and exploring their work. Having said that, fear not, as always, you'll find plenty of useful links along with videos on the show page. First up then, for me, Lynn, Giles, Michael and John, the Digital Suite, where we learn a little bit more about the art and process of photogravure.
This is traditional photogravure. So this is a guy called James Craig Annan. You might know his father, Thomas Craig Annan, who took really kind of around about 1870s iconic photos of the Gorbals in Glasgow of people in close. So this is his son, this kind of pioneer of photogravure. So it's really the context of it is that period. Photographers were really considered more like scientists and wanted to be, for whatever reason, more considered as artists. Less of the scientists, more of the artists. So they were looking for ways to get more of a kind of fine art feel into their work, and combining it with a technique like etching was a possible way to do that. So there was a fair amount of it done in Scotland. I mean, I went to an exhibition in Edinburgh about Scotland's contribution to photography. It was really interesting, and there was one wee quirk that I really liked about the daguerreotype process. That his big rival was Fox Talbot, isn't that right? Yeah. So, and there's a whole distinction between the English patent system and the French patent system. So the French system is very egalitarian, and if someone like Daguerre patented that, the patent was with the people of France, not the individual. So it meant that anyone could make use of it. Fox Talbot, being English, with the pyramid system in England, didn't like that. And there was a dispute over, and it led to a standoff that you could not buy the daguerreotype in England and you couldn't buy Fox Talbot in France, but you could in Scotland because the Scottish system is a bit more egalitarian like the French, and therefore it was so there was this sort of leap in development of stuff in Scotland at that time simply because you couldn't get the daguerreotype in England, which is a bizarre quirk, isn't it? But what it really brought home was, it's fine saying that, but if you bought the daguerreotype kit to do it, the camera and the kit, by today's money, it was about £27,000. Yeah. So it lets you understand who was doing it, the type of people who were doing it, generally men, generally who could afford the equipment, but also people to carry it because it was big and bulky and stuff. So these are the guys who were then wanting to get more involved, maybe be considered more as artists. And James Craig Annan, like I say, started this. He was a great pioneer of photogravure in Scotland. These are quite small. They're actually about the size of the plates you'll be working on, so they're about 19 centimetres. This is called the Dark Mountain, so it's the Trossachs, which is the sort of line of mountains just north of Glasgow from Loch Lomond over to Stirling. And what he would do, now I'll try and explain this in a nutshell, right, because it's kind of quite complex, but basically they would aquatint a plate. They would then have this paper that would be bonded onto the surface of the plate with various layers, one of them being a kind of bichromate and gelatine layer. Then they would have the film positive would be exposed onto that, and through various chemical baths, some of the gelatine resist would float off. You would then remove the paper, leaving this gelatine resist on the aquatint. So the areas that were completely solid, gelatine wouldn't get any etch, so they would be completely white. The areas that were completely free would get the full level aquatint etch, so it'd be totally dark. And then you've got all this lovely stuff in between. And it's a complex process. It goes through various baths of different strengths of acid or ferric or whatever you'd be using at the time. And there's various chemical baths to process the actual image on the plate. It's time consuming. The beauty of it is you've got a physical plate that you could, for instance, burnish up some whites with a burnish tool, flattening the little physical tooth on the metal. And then it's inked like you saw in like an etching. But its characteristic is these lovely kind of soft tones, these intense blacks from this rich oil-based ink, but this almost dreamy quality to it in the tonal areas. It's kind of lovely. And embossed into paper. So again, freed up from photographic paper, you're into printmaking papers, all of these things.
It's so interesting because you look in the landscape part of it and it looks like an etching.
Yeah.
But then you compare that with the figures, and it sometimes doesn't make sense because that's photographic and they're beautiful. I mean, it's exquisite. I don't think I've ever seen something so exquisite.
Yeah, they're really nice things, and they've got. I think particularly now we're used to digital in the way I think the digital industry's gone with the kind of manufacturer's obsession with sharpness. These things remind they're sharp enough, but the soft areas are exquisite on them. That's one of the things with it. People say, what's the best subjects for it? Well, I mean, I don't know how you'd get this commission to do this as a photogravure.
Of a brain.
Yeah, it looks like I don't know whether it looks like something from the Surgeons' Hall in Edinburgh is a great place if you get a chance to go to. Yeah. It's full of medical history, and there's a lot of artists who are commissioned to medical illustrations and stuff, which this kind of looks like it might be. Yeah. And this one is one I took. This is a polymer photogravure, which is what you're going to be doing, right? So we have looked at over the years about introducing traditional photogravure. I'm not sure if there's another studio in the UK that does it. There is in North America and there's some in Europe, but the reason we haven't is space, how we'd work out all the baths required for it and time. And also the polymer plates are so good at it that we're not sure we could set it all up and hardly anybody would use it because the polymer plates do the job really nicely. So these plates are a thin sheet of steel with a polymer coating, which is light sensitive. The downside of them is, unlike the copper plates, you can't physically work them. So you're going to be exposing images onto them, developing them, and then we'll print from them. The best way to think of them is one hit. Yeah. So if it goes wrong, it's another plate. So the way these work is we create a positive. Now you could do it from film or we could do it with digital. We then have a 2-stage exposure. So we need to get that aquatint on. So instead of the physical aquatint, we've got stuff called an aquatint screen, or sometimes known as a Dove screen, because it's the woman who developed it. It's called Elizabeth Dove. So it's like, I'll show you, you'll see it. It's like hundreds of little random dots on a transparent film. So that aquatint is exposed onto the plate. and then the image exposed. So instead of physical aquatint, we're now photo exposing aquatint effect on, if you like. The great thing is they then develop in water. Yeah, so there's no chemicals required at that stage. Develop in water, we cure them, file them, and imprint. First of all, when I first started using them, printmaking, when you've been doing it for years, it's all quite tactile. The materials are all really nice. They're nice to use. These plastic coated plates, but I've kind of really got to like them. They work really nicely, and there's a really nice fusion in old and new. Not just, most people are starting from a digital source who do it, but you've also got the polymer technology. You've got all of that, but you still end up hand inking on the ground floor like Rembrandt did or whoever did. And you've still got these lovely tonal ranges.
Right then, sit up class. Before I go any further and we return to Inverness, a very quick glossary, because over the next hour or so you may feel as though you've accidentally wandered into a Scottish chemistry lesson. So here are a few terms that will help you speak the polymer photogravure language. Aquatint. Not a fancy bottled water. It's a way of creating tones and subtle shades on the printing plate, rather than simply black lines. Oh, plate. Not something you put your shortbread on. This is the light-sensitive polymer plate that will eventually carry the image and transfer it onto paper. Dove screen. No actual doves are involved. It's a finely textured screen that transfers an almost invisible pattern onto the plate, allowing beautifully smooth tonal transitions in the finished print. It's like magic. Brushing. Now, during the process, the plate that you hear about is gently brushed while it's being developed in water. It's a very careful, controlled stage, as you'll hear. Inking. This is where the ink is worked into every tiny recess and texture of the plate. At first, it looks like you put far too much on. It just looks like a bit of a mess. But that's entirely the point, as you'll find out. Wiping. Possibly the least impressive sounding word in the whole process, really. It's a careful removal of ink from the surface of the plate, while leaving it exactly where it's needed. Done well, it's an art. Done badly, an excellent way to start all over. Registration. The art of making sure everything lines up perfectly. Be even slightly out and you'll discover several new Scottish expressions. Addition. A number of prints produced from the same plate, each considered an original artwork rather than a copy. And finally, patience. Not strictly a technical term, obviously, but perhaps the most important one you'll hear today. Polymer photogravure is a process that rewards people who are prepared to slow down. Note to self here, I can see you looking at me. John, so we've been all adjusting our images, turning the colour ones to black and white, converting to black and white, doing a little bit of curve work with it. But the next stage, there seems to be a recipe.
Yeah, we're going to do just an adjustment curve on the images, which will...
A curve on our curves.
Exactly, yeah. So the idea is you have them how you'd like them to look. We're now going to just do an adjustment to adapt them for the plates. They'll probably look a little bit flat when we print them just now, but the idea is that by the time you do the final print from the plate, it'll be closer to what you saw on the screen to begin with. Yeah, that's right. So that's the next stage, and then we will inkjet print a high quality transparency. So film positive, effectively.
Right. Got you.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Right, we'll go down and get a quick coffee.
So John, the next part of the process was, initially we got some plates.
Yeah, now we've done the dove screen or aquatint exposure, and now you're going to be doing your image exposure on the plate.
The images came out as transparencies.
They're positive inkjet transparencies,
yeah.
So they look nice, so they're good. So we're going to place the plates on them and give them the exposure of the image onto the plate now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you lead.
Okay.
So we're taking the plates and then we're putting them across the transparencies and a part of the image that has reasonable tonal range. John's choosing an image that's of a man with a rather long beard. Is that a self-portrait, John, of when you grew one?
Yeah, well, it's a self-portrait this morning before I shaved.
I thought maybe it was. So this machine is a huge... What do you call it?
We just call it a photo exposure unit. Yeah, so we use it for screen print, photogravure, photolitho exposures. Right. Anything in the studio that needs exposed. It's got a vacuum top on it and a big metal halide bulb. Right. So yeah, so it does all of them. Different settings for each medium.
It's hard to explain in podcast terms. Sometimes you need to see things, but hopefully you're imagining this.
This one's totally enclosed, so it's pretty much as big as they go. Right. Enclosed. To go bigger, you would need a separate room to have the thing in it. Yeah. So now the image exposure is 45. If you went to a different studio, a different unit, these settings would be different. They're kind of unique to this unit. Really. That's the lamp. So now the next stage is we now develop them in water. So I'm going to get a little bath of water, just about a centimetre deep, kind of lukewarm. I'm going to put them all in at once, and there's a couple of makeup brushes, so you can take turnabout, but we need them all brushed for 2 minutes. The brushing, basically the stuff, the polymer that's going to float off into the water can sit on the surface like a gel, and it stops more water getting in to carry on the development. So by brushing, we release that in the water and let the development continue. So the brushing thing is important, that they all get brushed. So even don't just brush your own one, you know, when you're two of you doing it.
Yes.
Think of the community. Brush everyone's. Yeah.
So we're in a small room now. What's this process, John?
This is the developing of the plates. So they've gone into a bath of lukewarm water, and we're just brushing the surfaces of them with a really soft brush. Just straight water. You wouldn't reuse it. You would always just fresh water each time you do it. Other than that, it's just tap water, and they're just brushing the surfaces to make sure the development is nice and even for 2 minutes.
Do you have to be careful how hard you brush?
Yeah, you wouldn't go too hard, and you wouldn't, fight the bristles. You're just almost like I describe it as like ploughing a field.
It's like a shaving brush.
It is, yeah. I think it's a number 10 makeup brush.
Oh, isn't it?
Yes.
Are you seeing pictures appearing before your eyes? Yeah.
It's just, it's extraordinary. It really is.
Okay, we're nearly there. So that's us. Okay, so if we start to lift them one at a time and just drain them, set them face up on this bit of paper here.
So is it safe for them to now see light?
Yeah, they're fine now. As soon as they go into the water, that's them.
Okay.
Image is set. And I'm just going to drop that down there and get another sheet, and hopefully 2 will be enough.
So this is drying them?
It's just taking away, blotting them, effectively taking them in your liquid. If there's a drip left on them, it can leave like a tarnish mark on the image. So now they'll be a bit sticky just now. So if you just lift them gently and hold them by the edges, and then we're going to put them in the dryer.
All right. Okay, so we'll grab our own. So in here, this feels as much, seeing a plate with your image on it, feels as much a work of art as the paper. This is so early in the process.
It's one of the depressing things about printmaking, when people say I preferred the plate.
Have I just said the wrong thing, John?
It's kind of like when people look at your work and go, I like the frame. So they look a little bit milky just now, but they're going to now we've got a delay now of about 40 minutes while we dry them. Yeah. So just going to close this, drying oven, and then main switch on.
Temperature is?
What's that? I'm going to spit about 90 degrees.
Okay. Fairly strong heat then.
This doubles up as a big light box.
We could get a suntan while we're here.
You'd be better in there. So now this stage is the curing of them. They're drying out. There's one more stage which is known as the flash expose, which they'll go back in and we'll give them about 200 units, and that it's like a toughening up of the plate, so it just hardens them further so that they can put up with what's about to happen to them downstairs with the printing process. So, and then once the flash exposed, we'll be downstairs and we'll start printing.
I should have made it clear, although I know you've probably worked this stuff out by now, that there are in fact two Johns in this relationship. The John who is on the photo retreat, who lives in Birmingham, and the John who is the studio manager, who certainly does not sound like he could appear in Peaky Blinders. Remember, we're on day one at the moment where we learn this stuff. Tomorrow you'll hear a few more truncated edits of us doing these bits for ourselves. And you'll definitely hear the moment where I actually get what's going on. It's a penny drop moment. But for the moment, we've done the careful and preparatory bits. Our images, which were initially digital, have made their way onto polymer plates. We've navigated terminology that sounded suspiciously like an exam, and now we're about to reach my favourite stage. I've always liked the messy bits. At school, if there was paint involved, glue that somehow ended up on your elbows, or a teacher saying, "Whatever you do, don't touch that," I was immediately drawn to it. Give me precision by all means. But if there's a chance of coming away looking as though I've wrestled an octopus full of printer's ink, even better. So we're now at the point where ink is worked into every tiny recess of the plate. It's not normal ink either, as you'll find out. It looks gloriously excessive, and the instinct is to think, well, I've probably put far too much on, don't tell teach. But it isn't. That's exactly how it should look. As you'll hear though, John and I approach this stage from slightly different philosophical positions. I rather enjoy it, rolling my sleeves up with all the jeopardy of returning home to hear shouts from my mum, "What have you done to your shirt and trousers?" John, on the other hand, has the calm, measured demeanour of a man who would quite like the ink to remain on the plate, the table, and nowhere else. Let's see how this works out then.
If we're two down here and we'll get three of you up this end. So the oil-based ink doesn't come out of clothes. So we'll get you an apron and there's gloves, small, medium, large. This is the messiest form of printmaking. So
fun bit.
I get a bit twitchy, a bit mess. So it's one of the big things with this is try and keep on top of that. So keep your gloves as clean as you can, wipe up around you, because this stuff on the ink surfaces, or on, say, if it gets on the handle of a press, it's going to stay wet for 6 weeks, and it just gets on everything. So it's just that thing of keeping on top of it all the time is a big part of it, really. I've put out rags, so you can see these are the rags, these things. And in these is a low odour white spirit. But the main thing with the rags, getting back to them, is keep them distinct from your scrim. This should never get spirit on it. So the rags are for cleaning and spirit. These are for wiping. If they do get spirit on them, if you forget, bin, because it'll just strip the ink off your plate. So first thing we're going to do is paper. We've got Somerset Cream, Hahnemühle etching, and Fabriano Artistico. So we'll just use a sheet of this to start with. And this is a quarter sheet. Okay, you can have a feel of it. It's nice stuff, 100% cotton. Oh, wow. The Fabriano is double size, so it can be used for watercolour as well. So it tends to pull a print that's a little bit marginally more detailed, slightly sharper. The Hahnemühle will be a slightly softer feel to it. Somerset's kind of in between the two. But they're all, like Lynn said earlier on, none of them are bad. They all just do it differently. They're all nice papers. So they're all round about 300 grams as well. So if you follow me, I'll show you. This is the first thing I'll do when the hands are clean, is in the paper bag, which is right here.
I think we'll all be singing from the same photo manual when I suggest that photographers have two great loves. Probably more, but I'll go with two. The first is kit, of course. Mention a new lens or camera, and we'll happily spend an hour discussing it, and may even dribble at some stage. But the second is altogether more peculiar. Paper. Mention a new paper stock, and otherwise sensible adults begin stroking sample books and rubbing their knees with unnecessary excitement in a way that could possibly get you arrested in any other environment. It's hardly a new obsession. Long before photography existed, paper was a prized commodity. Early handmade papers were expensive, labour-intensive, and treasured enough to carry watermarks identifying the mill that produced them. Printers and artists would argue passionately over fibres and weight and texture, much as photographers today debate sensors and sharpness. Some of Japan's finest washi papers are still made by hand using fibres from the kozo, or paper mulberry, in traditions that stretch back centuries. The making of a single batch can take weeks, and many workshops produce only limited quantities each year. And that brings us to another wonderfully patient part of this process. Before the paper is ready to receive the image, it has to be soaked in water. 20 minutes to a couple of hours max, and it isn't simply getting wet for the sake of it. The fibres are relaxing and expanding so that when the print is made under such enormous pressure from the press that comes shortly, the paper can accept the ink consistently and then dry with minimal distortion. Right, we're closing in on the end of day one, all the knowledge stuff with a fair bit of practical. Next up, you'll hear us prepping the plate, adding some ink, doing some scrimming, and then, take it for granted, we rescue our ever so lovely papers from the bath of water where they've been merrily swimming for 20 minutes or so, push them through the press, which on day two, shortly, results in a strange memory about a TV character called Windy Miller. And as you're about to hear in just a moment or three, the two Johns see the first of our combined works appear.
First thing, either with a brand new plate, especially important, a brand new plate like this, is we're going to oil it. So you can see just a few drops on.
And what's that doing?
It's doing a couple of things. First is, because the polymer reacts to water, before it was exposed, there might still be one or two random particles in there, molecules that haven't been properly developed. And because we've got damp paper, the risk is it really sticks.
Right.
So the oil just helps prevent that, helps even out the inking. But also, and this, I forgot to mention this upstairs, like when the blotting stage, because I did it as a demo, once you get to do it tomorrow, if you're too heavy with that or you score a bit of it, you can get paper fibres stuck on the plate because the plate's kind of tacky. We once had someone who had an eyelash fall on it, and at that stage just leave it, because if you try and remove it, the risk is you're going to mark the plate worse. Leave it until this stage, and again this oil will then remove anything like that. Yeah. I've given the ink a wee bit of a stir mix just to loosen it a wee bit. You can see how stiff it is. It's, like I said, it's not like ink from a pen. Screen printing squeegees, offcuts of them. So it's like you can see, it's a soft rubber blade. What you wouldn't use is like a steel palette knife because that's going to mark the plate. Yeah. So as long as whatever you're applying the ink is softer than the plate, you don't need to worry. So what I'm looking to is getting some ink. Now the angle is going to be kind of like this, so you're on the edge of the blade.
45 degrees.
Yeah, aye, exactly, yeah. So now I'm just starting to move it over the surface of the plate, yeah. So now that I've got it on, I'm moving it around the plate and really pushing down. So like I say, this is softer, it's not going to harm the plate, so don't be frightened to really, apply a bit of pressure. If you don't, what you'll get is little white dots, particularly in your dark areas, and that's ink that's not pushed into that. If you think of it being like a microplane surface, you're pushing it in to it. So just spend a few minutes moving it all over.
So how long would you yourself often spend pushing the ink into a plate?
Maybe between 2 and 5 minutes, just moving it around, yeah. 5 minutes is maybe quite long. That would be if I was avoiding something else, maybe. What I've done with the scrim is, you can see there's a sheet of it under the gloves there. It comes on a roll, and I've just really loosened it. It's starch, so just by doing this.
What's it made out of?
It's a starched muslin.
Okay.
So, and what you don't want is this kind of mess. You want a nice smooth ball.
So you're not rag rolling.
No, that's right. Nice smooth ball. The first thing I quite like to do is a twisting action, like so. because then it's gentle, but you are starting to wipe, but you're also helping work it in a little bit as well. And just do that over the whole surface to begin with. And you can see as I do it, you'll feel it like there's quite a bit of drag to begin with, and then it'll start to loosen the more you wipe. Tricky to get that room. So I'm changing direction on it as well. You can see like the whites are starting to emerge. But you can get fixated on just wiping the lighter areas. Wipe the whole thing. Keep wiping the darks. They hold a surprising amount of ink, and if you don't wipe, that ink can sometimes squelch or just look claggy on your finished print. So, and we'll wait until you're all inked up.
Good luck.
There is to it. Right.
So each time, see, look, just now, what I'll do is look, just give me a second.
So having gone through the press, this is the moment of truth.
These things might be rubbish.
It's really good.
I like the expectations being suitably lowered. Yeah.
Okay, so I just peeled it off, basically. Oh, wow, look at that.
It's as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's really weird. That one's red black. Yeah, but we'll sort that out. So this one's jet black as well, again. But there's nice tones in the background. We're not going to panic just now. We'll let it. You can see this. The ink can be sometimes a little bit shiny. Just now, that'll settle, and it won't be as it dries in. So what we'll do is we'll just leave it to dry overnight, and we'll look at it in the morning and decide whether we increase or decrease exposure.
Or we brush better.
Yeah, you can brush better as well. Yeah.
It's the end of day one then, and clearly there's a little work to do yet to bring these final prints up to speed, but we have another day. But for now, well, I think we're ready for some R&R and a Scottish night back at the barn, which is Scottish salmon and char siu potatoes, which are, to quote our friend Michael from 2025's retreat, the best potatoes he's tasted in his life, although rather more Cantonese than Scottish, with an involvement of hoisin, honey, garlic and ginger. And if all that paper talk didn't have you salivating, I'm sure the menu for the evening did, cooked up beautifully by our chef Daisy. Anyway, if you're liking what you hear, this is a good time to let you know that we will be back in the Polymer Photogravure Studio in 2027, so watch out for the official page that will come shortly on photowalk.show. It's part of a photographic retreat that in 2027 will take us to new locations and a couple of old favourites. So if you'd like to join us for the week as it returns to September and we go deep into the Highlands, then these are the dates. Sunday 5th to Saturday the 11th, September 2027. If you'd like to come, register your interest early to stories@photowalk.show, the regular address to the show, stories@photowalk.show. Only 5 places available, and actually one of those I think has just gone. Does that mean there's only 4 places, Neil? Well, yes it does really, if you do the maths, it certainly does, Stanley. To quote my favourite black and white duo from a time they may have even posed for an original photogravure process. I suppose it's possible. Day 2, we've returned, and the process gets serious, John. Explain what we've done, or what so far Giles and John have done to start the process of actually producing their main print.
Well, now we're on to the full plates. So we've looked at the results from yesterday on the test plates, and we've just kind of assessed whether we tweak the exposures. We're going to on the second 3 plates, but not these 2. So these 2 are good, and we're doing the aquatint exposure, and then we're about to do the image exposure, as was yesterday, because the settings on their plates look good to go.
So like all things with processes, I'm not a very process-driven person, so it's taken me a while to understand the dove sheet. Explain the dove sheet again for me.
Essentially what it's doing is it's putting a tooth structure on the plate.
Right.
Because this is a direct print from a plate onto the paper, the ink is the intaglio ink, which is ink that goes into the grooves and not on the surface. It's designed to kind of cling on to anything it can. So that tooth structure is what it's holding on to on the surface of the plate. And the varying amounts of tooth give you the tones. So a big tooth, dense big tooth will give you blacks. A lightweight, far apart tooth gives you greys.
That's why we were talking about the newspaper.
Yeah, the newspapers, they'll do a regimented dot structure called a halftone.
Yeah.
Whereas this is trying to get is almost like a film grain of that more natural, random grain, which you get from genuine aquatint in etching. This dove screen is trying to replicate that natural grain structure, and it does it really well.
So the transparencies went back in.
Yep.
They've now been exposed.
Yep.
Next part of the process
Is developing the plates in the bath of water.
and that is with the brushing.
With the brushing, that's correct.
Now I'm getting it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's only taken a day and a few hours.
I think we heard the penny drop. If you want, you can leave them in here just now. So just which it has done.
So we're filling up what would be a dev tray in a dark room
Don't worry. Just about a centimetre.
with a centimetre of water. Does it have to be a particular temperature?
I mean, it's lukewarm. I was just saying.
Lukewarm,
I mean,
okay.
I suppose if you want to get, you could go with the dark room thing of what is it like?
20 degrees.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
18 to 20 degrees is fine.
Well, Giles actually, with all his developing skills in the middle of the desert. Well, you did. That's exactly what you did. When you were in the army, you were able to develop your stuff in the middle of the field, weren't you? You've probably got a pretty good feel at what water temperatures are.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I suppose it is. Yeah, there's more being in my darkroom now. It's
Yeah.
I think that's right. So
Okay, so you've got a tray of water. Take it through.
Carry it through and put it over here.
And this is where the brushing process takes place. So we're going to put the plates in that have now been exposed.
let me come in this side.
Okay, so remember, face up. Main thing is watch they don't go over each other because they're vulnerable when they hit the water because they go a little bit soft.
So the plates are out.
Side up, yeah. Okay.
Face up.
In and start brushing straight
Brushing
away.
now, yeah. And you
And the brush is side to side, left to right, left to right, soft, and then down and up and down and up and down and up for 2 minutes. And that is doing.
Again, it's just releasing that polymer off them
as you
into
said,
the water.
yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
See, it's all happening, John. It's starting to make sense. The penny's dropped. Definitely.
I'm concentrating on brushing.
Well, I'm not asking you questions. Just brush. In that a lot of this process we went through on day one, I'll not revisit every part of it, but just as a reminder, yesterday wasn't about making finished prints. We were learning, experimenting, and if we're honest, discovering just how many opportunities there are to get things wrong. We began with a digital photo, but that was only the starting point. The image was transformed into a high-quality transparency, then it was carefully exposed to light onto a light-sensitive polymer plate. That plate was developed in water, gently brushed to reveal the image and create the tiny recesses that would eventually hold the ink. I hope I've got that in the right order. Yesterday we practiced all this on smaller test plates, and I'm not sure I made that completely clear. I'm sure you worked it out. But they were our dress rehearsal, allowing us to judge and understand the process, adjust the exposures, and then begin to appreciate just how much further judgment is involved at every single stage. It's wonderful, it's beautiful, it's tactile, it's all those things that you love about the creative process. But today, though, the stabilizers are off. We're working with full-sized plates. Decisions now matter a bit more. The paper is waiting, the ink is ready, and all those careful steps we spent the last day learning are about to come together. From this point on, we're no longer asking, how does polymer photogravure work? We're asking, can we make a print we're proud to take home? But before we can use these plates, there's just a little finishing to be done. And I thought you'd like to hear behind the scenes on this one. So we have our plates.
Yep.
Now,
Plates,
John, but they've got sharp, square edges at the moment.
Yeah. So they're developed. They've been flash exposed. They're now the last wee bit before we print, which is beveling and filing the edges, rounding the corners, just to give that nice, soft, embossed plate mark. So it's kind of aesthetic thing.
So there's an aesthetic reason.
Yeah.
More than a...
That's right.
Yeah.
And these are slightly trickier than a conventional etching plate to file because you've got a laminate. You've got the two materials. You've got the steel back and then the polymer coating, and there is a risk that they chip, but also, we're never going to get as clean an edge as we would on a copper or steel plate because that seam between the two materials can hold a little bit of ink. Yeah, so, but we'll do, we're not going to file them as aggressively as we would a steel or copper plate, but it's just to turn the edge and get a nicer edge on it. So I suppose the key thing would be if you feel you're fighting the file, then you're doing it wrong. Just it should be light, file just doing its work. These pieces of tissue are just to help if you want your hand not to. You are going to get a lot of little, the debris from the filing on the surface. Don't worry about it. Again, when we do that, remember the first stage is that oil is going to clean all of that off. Yeah. But it's just sometimes the plates can be a little bit tacky, so there's the tissue might just make that feel better. So I'll do this corner here on Lynn's just to demo it. What you don't want is hanging out here like a diving board. It's about 1 centimetre overlap. And rather than going up and down, we go along the way. So you can see I'm going to start off very shallow and just lightweight, hardly any effort. You do your thumb on it, whatever you're comfortable with. Obviously if you're left-handed, you'll be facing the other direction. And now I'm starting to increase the angle. You see that?
Yeah.
As I do it. And then once you get to here, you'll feel the steel. You hear it. Yeah. And you can do it again if you want. So start when you're going shallow, obviously you got to watch you don't scratch across the surface.
We're all filing the edges of our plates. Lynn's managing to make hers sound like the dawn chorus in the Australian bush. I think that's a male kookaburra in pain.
I don't know, I think I'm the one that's in pain.
I was just commenting that in my school in Hertford, my all-boys school in Hertford, design and technology lessons would involve lots of the pupils sitting around with a file in their hand with an object made of metal, making it into the most pointy possible thing that they could, as if they were staying at Her Majesty's pleasure at the time, HMP Strangeways. How are you doing, Michael?
Good. Yeah, there's more risk involved in destroying your artwork than I thought.
Yeah, we've been
because you shouldn't use the file on the plate itself, just the edges.
As John mentioned, we've been treating these things with kid gloves, and now we've taken a file to them.
Yeah, it doesn't feels wrong in a way, but I can understand what now, after John's explained why we have to do it.
Yeah.
It's a long time since I've sat at a bench with a file. So it does take me back to my school days as well.
Oh, I was wondering what you were going to say then. I was saying, which HMP is it around Birmingham?
Winson Green.
Is it Winson Green? Oh, that's one of the worst, apparently, isn't it?
Yes.
Seen that on a YouTube film.
Yes, it is. It's actually
HMP. Is it Winson Green? No.
Well, it's just HMP.
Isn't it Sutton?
No, it's HMP Birmingham now, but it used to be called HMP Winson Green. So I don't know whether it's not high security, I don't think.
No.
I'm sure somebody will correct me on that, but it's a reasonably high.
Well, they wouldn't let you have files in prison, would they? Here we are, sir. Have a file. See if you can get out of that bar. Right, I've got to carry on with mine. Giles has inked his plate, done all the other bits that come with it. You've scrimmed it, you've wiped it, and this next stage is the printing under the press. He's very quiet at these moments.
I can't say anything, I'm concentrating.
Right. Time for you to wind. How many tons of pressure is this, John?
2.5, something like that. Yeah.
Tons. Yeah. And tell me about the machine you use.
The machine, we bought it about 20 years ago. Yeah. So Rochat are London-based, like you see on it. So they make them a very traditional way. So on this one, there's no greased bearings. It's all oiled bushes. So you oil it regularly, keep it in good order.
Should last you years if it's looked after.
Should last.
Like the old Heidelberg presses.
Yeah. Should certainly outlive me.
Oh, John. Yeah. And so we're pressing down on the plate itself.
You've got the blankets give a bit of cushioning, help spread the pressure.
So blankets we put down there on top of the process.
Yeah. So you've got the top cylinder, the blankets, the paper, the plate.
Yeah.
Then the press bed, which is about a 1 inch thick steel plate, and then the bottom cylinder underneath drives it through.
There's something about the speed, because you don't want to go too fast.
Go too fast. No, that's right. So these things are geared down for a reason. So they want to go at a steady pace all the way through. Probably you wouldn't want to stop halfway through. It'd risk getting a line on the print. Right. So you just keep the pace going. I mean, you can go a little bit faster, Giles, if you want. Yeah, a wee bit faster. Yeah. And you go to the end of the blankets.
Right.
Just has to go through once.
Yeah.
Peel the blankets off, lift your paper.
And then the moment of truth. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
You're so used to printing in a dark room, Giles, that you can see everything coming alive as the process goes along. But here, the blanket's hiding the final
I realise
print.
I've gone from glacial photography to tectonic photography. now it's cosmic printmaking, because it takes cosmic time to do, and it's just wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And but not knowing what you have, that's really exciting. That really is.
Well, this is the moment where you find out if you've over-inked or under-inked or rubbed too hard or...
Yep. There you go. Yeah.
Here we go.
A little bit dark, is it?
It is a bit, but it's lovely.
So you can get a bit more. Next time, this is where we now adjust. Yeah. So you increase your scrimming a little bit more, because you can see there's detail in here.
Yeah.
That's not showing quite so much on there.
So is there too much ink left on?
Yeah.
In it,
so
right?
Scrimming it more will give us a little bit more.
What's really interesting is not so much the shadow areas at the moment, but it's judging by the highlight areas. Mm-hmm. Because looking at the highlights on the plate and the level of detail and the tonal range within the highlights on the print, it's a much greater seemingly much greater tonal range on the print. So it's. I was getting worried that I was getting. But actually, now that I know what's on there, I can take that more out of there. That's amazing.
So the photograph that Giles made was of a rock with a tree each side, which is going to have a lot of detail, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think we can get a lot more out of it, definitely. Yeah. First thing is.
Michael is at the press stage.
Yeah, I've always wanted to be a press photographer. Now I have both. No. This is amazingly easy.
My microphone is going around with the wheel, look, which nobody can see because it's a podcast.
Wow, the
but you have
wheel
to
on the
imagine
press
it.
goes round and round.
You won't know because you're German, but I don't suppose you'd have ever had Windy Miller as a character
Nope.
on children's television.
Nope.
No.
Oh.
Campbellwick Green, wasn't it? Windy Miller?
Wasn't it?
Was it Trumpton? Oh, I get those two confused.
You want some squeaky noises?
Yeah. Well, there was a noise, wasn't there, with Windy Miller?
And they always walk between the cells, and I used to pry.
Oh, Windy Miller used to walk through the blades.
He always told
Yeah.
me just right. I thought,
Yeah.
this guy's an arrogant it's going to get knocked off.
This is a family show, John.
You've got to comfort yourself now as we've got older, realise that
Look, both Johns in the room behave.
like all these characters.
Those gaps you've just heard in the podcast, because both Johns said terrible things about Windy Miller. It wasn't just wind, and he wasn't just milling.
Euphemisms and euphemisms.
Meanwhile, you've almost finished pressing
Come to the end.
your plate. Oh dear. Right.
The other end.
Yes, it's there. It's there. Don't go any further. We leave the handle at the bottom, otherwise you will end up like Windy Miller.
Okay.
Here we go. Oh. Hear all those admiring sounds.
This is the way I could hope for.
Good. I think you could probably back off a wee bit.
Yes,
I think
it was way too much.
See when you were scrubbing here, I think that's what's happened. It's going a little bit.
So Michael's picture is a delicate still life of well, it's plants. When you took this a few years ago, didn't you? There's petals on the floor on the table.
6 years, yeah, and they look like a signature from afar.
Yeah,
That's why I like this.
that's beautiful. Very, very nice indeed. Nobody likes a smart Alec. Well done for the first one.
Very happy with the
It's just
Lesson number 1, how to treat your kind.
a bit of cultural appropriation now, Michael. But this feels like the World Cup. You always win the penalties. And since it's a World Cup year, that's beautiful, Michael. Really lovely. Yeah.
The blacks are way better than on the test.
Well, I'm delighted to report that we all came away with what I think are rather wonderful prints. They weren't simply the result of 2 days' work, but of 2 days of learning, adjusting, observing and improving. With every plate and every pull through the press, you could feel our confidence growing. None of us, with the exception of Lynn, had experienced anything quite like this before. Even Giles, who spent the best part of 3 decades behind a camera, was completely captivated by this remarkable process. It's photographic, yes, but it's also sculptural, tactile, deliberate, and wonderfully human. And perhaps that's why photogravure has never really gone away. While it has its roots in the 19th century, artists in more recent decades, including Irving Penn, Hiroshi Sugimoto, and Sally Mann, have all been drawn to its extraordinary richness and depth. In a world where images can appear and disappear with the swipe of a thumb, there's something rather defiant about a process that asks for patience and rewards craftsmanship. In a moment, and with the last words on the show today, I'll leave it to Lynn Fraser, Giles Penfound, John Anderton and Michael Assmann to share their thoughts on how they felt and feel about the process. But first, as day 2 comes to an end, our mentor, John McNaught, who's guided us from bewildered beginners to something approaching competent printmakers, I'd like to think, will have some final words prior to our photo walkers. Right. Next week, it's the Scottish Retreat Special. Photographing lochs and glens, writing forest bathing poetry, and a short revisit to this, of course, and an end to the week we weren't quite expecting. If you'd like to be on the 2027 Retreat to Scotland, then drop me a line to stories@photowalk.show. Right, John, it's the moment of truth. Well, we finished the second day in our session. When Lynn, because it was Lynn's idea, said you need to do photogravure, and it takes 2 days, I thought, surely it can't take 2 days. One morning and an afternoon will be done. But of course, I was thinking in a very different way. I probably had my film stroke digital head on. It's a wonderful process.
Well, as long as you enjoyed it, that's the main thing. I think that's the thing. I think you all did really well with it. Got good results.
Yeah.
It's probably similar to the slow food movement or something. You know, it's not something like you say you could do very quickly in a couple of hours. And I think now, if any of you wanted to continue, it's just that thing of doing it and building up. It's a lot of particularly the inking is feel based, and you've just got to build up that feel. So again, it's not something you can do quickly.
Do some pictures lend themselves more to it? Because I know, having seen Lynn's amazing pictures, the portraits from various parts of Africa, these are larger figures, and for me, they work extremely well. I did something that was very low key, very low light, and the figures were much smaller. Yeah.
I think it depends. I think everyone would have their opinion on which images work the best. I think the plates are capable of doing virtually any image. There's some images that might take a few more test plates to get the tones correct. So I think particularly images with a whole lot of light tones, I would say. Equally, images with a whole lot of darks. So these two extremes, maybe it's not that plates won't do it. It might just take a few test plates to kind of be, get it to where you want it to be, I suppose. And that's different for everybody, where they want it to be. That's the thing. I don't think there's any great rules with this. I think it's a new technique. It's not going to be like a digital print. Or like others.
Not at all.
And there's no point in fighting that. And just go with the medium. That's why you chose to do it. And then you find your own visual with it. And that might be different in a year's time of doing it rather than what you're doing now, because you get more and more familiar with it.
As photography changes, you've worked for 40 years in printing and photographic, so you've seen these changes. Do you feel that there is some sort of desire from photographers to go back into a more experiential process like this, in terms of there's a value to it that they see coming back into their work when they get involved in a very manual process? Or am I being a bit nostalgic and romantic?
No, I think there is a thing of people just simply like doing things with their hands. So that thing of being a bit more hands-on. In this case, I think virtually all of you started with a digital source anyway. So and then you've taken it through that. But I think it's probably like, if you look at something like vinyl in music, most of the people I think who are buying vinyl are not doing it through nostalgia. It's not older people buying it again. It's young people who didn't experience it the first time, which is maybe telling. True. And I think that's the same with Fuji Instax. It's the young people's market, because they've got loads of photos on their phones, which are screens, but Fuji Instax is probably still their quickest way to get something on a bit of paper or similar in their hand.
At the end of my podcasts, I ask one question, and you don't escape it, because this is a special, and you've got the final word. The question I ask is always why, and the why is applied to why you photograph, or why you still do this, why this process, what it is about photography and printing that makes you want to come in at 6 a.m. and leave at midnight.
Certainly not for money, I can tell you that. I don't know. I mean, I suppose we were talking earlier on about the thing of, if you knew, the thing of that small bit of thrill of peeling the paper back to see what you've got. And if that became far too predictable, it'd be like using a photocopier, and therefore the appeal would go. That thing of, I suppose with experience, you get a better educated guess rather than being fully on top of it. And if you were, then maybe some of that appeal might go. So I suppose it's a thing of just that's kind of it, I think, and the mark making and all of that comes from it, I guess. I don't know, hard to say, but for some reason I keep struggling on.
What was your experience then of photogravure, John? How did you feel about the picture you made? You made this tremendous picture. Well, it's a tremendous picture to start with, but this is the digital image you chose to make the transparency from, that then went on to make the plate, that made the picture, that made the photogravure. There should be a song in that somewhere, shouldn't there? But what did you make of the process?
I absolutely loved it. And it really is a 2-day process.
Yeah.
When you think how quickly we can produce images now in the digital world, to think that from start to finish it actually takes 2 full days. And we were there from sort of 10 o'clock in the morning until sort of 5 in the evening, working solidly. And it's such a slow, meditative, and I know meditative has been, it's a little bit of a buzzword, isn't it? But it really is a slow, meditative process that you can really lose yourself, and it's really hands-on. You've got, you end up with inky hands, inky gloves, and the end result, I think the important thing about the end result is it's a different interpretation of your image. It's a different way of presenting your work. So it's not going to be as clear and as well defined as a digital image, or perhaps, or even a traditional darkroom image. But it's such a fascinating way of actually producing a finished result. And you've got total control over it, total control over the end result. I could have spent a week there just refining that one image.
Yeah.
I'm planning to actually put the plate and the finished print into the same frame together and hang on the wall, which I think will look quite nice. Maybe even the transparency as well. We'd have all 3 stages of the process hanging there in one frame.
Have you ever done anything like that before, in terms of that creative process of I was going to say screen printing, but that's the closest I can think to it.
Closest thing I've ever done to that is potato print at school. I mean, really, I've done darkroom printing, but that's just a completely different process. I mean, it's as enjoyable as that is, it is a completely different process. But no, I've never done anything like that before.
Yeah, I love that.
It's a completely new experience.
As our resident expert, Lynn, in the photogravure world, do you know what? I think you could still be doing that in a year's time. I know you've been in this studio a few times, but you could still be doing this in a year's time, and I reckon you'd
Still
be forever be learning this craft.
Oh, definitely, because there are so many variables through the process where things can go wrong.
Yeah.
You might end up with a bit of a scratch on your plate, or there's a flaw in the paper, or your inking's not good enough, you've put on too much ink or not enough ink. So part of constantly going in and practicing is trying to get that feel for when you're putting the ink onto the plate. And after a while you do get a bit of a feel that you've just got enough ink on, you don't need to put too much on.
At one stage, I think I got close to that, because at the first time I did it, I caked this ink on like I was decorating a wedding cake or something. The second time, a lot more subtle, including the way I wiped the plate.
Yeah. It's surprising how quickly you find a technique, and I think everybody's got their own technique. I mean, we were shown how to ink up and then how to scrim off the ink. But as I looked around, everybody was doing it slightly differently.
Now, the wonderful work that you showed us a couple of nights ago from what you've done there already, it seemed to me that there's probably a perfect type of image to choose, because you've got that fantastical picture of... Now, did you shoot that one? Was that Sudan, or was that Ethiopia? The lady with a big earring.
That's Ethiopia.
Yeah. It lent itself perfectly because it was a picture, pretty much fill the frame with a face, lots of detail, and I thought, that's the way to do it. That's the only way you can do it But that's not right, because we saw at the front of the shop here some fabulous images that are that north-east southwest project where somebody, Alex Boyd, made these photographs out in the wilds. The detail in those pictures is phenomenal.
It just goes to show what you can do with the process. And previously, John has shown me photogravure prints that somebody's made from an image taken on an iPhone. It's just very much comes down to the image, I think, and your inking.
Well, that was fascinating. Absolutely adored it. That has to be something we do next year.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
As someone who's spent a lifetime in dark rooms in the process of creating photographs under red lamps, photogravure was a new experience for you, wasn't it, Giles?
Yeah, completely new. It was really interesting, thoroughly absorbing. Just the process of it and the slowness of it really got me. I think the technicalities of it as well. You know how difficult it is to do, but it's just beautiful. How when you saw how John created those images that he showed us. I mean, there's real skill and artistry in that, and it was borne out by how difficult I found it to make my plate. To do a half-decent print. And I know I haven't got one, but that's not the point. I think the enjoyable part of it was that it was really hard. And I don't know about you, but you peeled off your first print, and there was that expectation of how lovely it would be, but it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
That's what was lovely about it, No, it's great. Really lovely day.
Michael, what were your experiences of the amazing photogravure process? You love a good process.
I do, and the same patterns apply that I usually see, right? Once you do a repetition of a process, and number one is you learn the individual activities, but you also get a feel for where can I do what to improve the outcome, and that's what we've seen. So my first print was good as a first print, but it was very clear where I wanted to see some changes, and the second one came out way better.
As a process man, we're different in terms of my approach to process is somewhat different to yours. I'm bound to ask, and it would be glib, but I'm going to ask it anyway. But what did you feel?
This was a joyful thing to do. It's when we were brushing the plates, you had a similar experience as in the darkroom when the negative appears.
Oh, of course, because it appears.
Or the positive appears, and it just appeared. And at the same time, you had a tactile feeling. It was a very glitchy, tacky process.
It was,
with water involved, and then so that's something that I recall. But other than that, and also a press. What I loved was the frame of the image.
And the inking process? So you bypass the inking process. That's one of my favourite bits, where you're wiping that ink on and then scrimming to reveal what's underneath.
Actually, the ink is a different ink than the one that we are used to in terms of fountain penning. It was more
consistency's rather more globular.
Yes.
It's such a horrible word.
And distributing it on the plate was not too difficult. Actually, it's a fun thing to do. Right? And then rubbing it off again, which was a little like a wax on, wax off thing.
Not quite like Karate Kid. It was a bit tougher than that.
Well, yeah.
Actually, no, but it shouldn't have been. No. We were told don't rub it like a...
Don't push too hard, don't press too hard, but rather more movement. And that's something that worked well. Actually, we got pretty quickly to a result.
Yeah.
And then again, I'm still thankful to John how he reminded us of a better technique of doing this, right? Full strokes and not just back and forth and those kind of things. So that was fun. And in the end, what I found is I think we made 4 prints, you and I, but we could easily have continued, and that was kind of a flow state that we got into. We got a rhythm of how we wanted to prepare the next print.
I was very ready just to say to him, John, leave us a key. We'll see you in the morning.
Yeah. Also, the idea of seeing, of trying different papers was interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? So there were tons of options in what we did alone, and we only repeated the last portion of the process, which was inking and removing the ink and then putting it on the press. I'm very interested to see how the prints will look like when they are dry.
The Photowalk is a Loading Zone production.